Welcome to the online training for counting and reporting JA hours. In this course, we will discuss the types of hours that we track in Junior Auxiliary and the appropriate classification of those hours, along with some frequently asked questions about reporting hours. The work unit of the Junior Auxiliary chapter member is the hour. While the real impact of service cannot be measured by counting hours, for internal purposes, hours are reported in the following categories: administration, education, finance, and service. We'll take a closer look at each of these categories. Administration or administrative hours are those that are worked to organize, administer, and operate Junior Auxiliary at both the local and national levels. Time spent to make the chapter run would be recorded in this category. Let's look at a few examples. When your chapter does community surveys to assess the needs in the community to determine what projects to keep and for new project ideas, this would be a service to the chapter and would be recorded in this category. Time spent researching a new project would also be reported as administration unless the project is adopted by the chapter. In that case, the time spent in preparation for the project would then be reported as service. Time spent by chapter officers and chairmen preparing reports for the members, such as the minutes, agendas, or the financial statements, would be counted as administration. The completion of reporting due to headquarters, year-end reports, articles for the Crownlet, filing the 990, or completing the NAJA scrapbook page are some other examples. Any time spent completing grant applications to the NAJA Foundation or preparing award entries to send to headquarters would also be considered administration hours. Please note that NAJA does not require any minimum number of administration hours. Be sure to check your chapter's constitution for any local requirements that your chapter may have. The purpose of education for the JA member is to enhance volunteer skills and to educate and equip members for better service, not just to meet a requirement. A trained volunteer is a better volunteer. Note that NAJA requires a minimum of 12 education hours per year for each member. Your chapter may require more, so check your chapter's constitution for your local requirement. Education hours may be obtained by attending chapter meetings, area meetings, annual education conference, provisional training, or chapter-approved seminars and programs that enhance JA volunteer skills and effectiveness. At least 6 of the 12 hours must come from attending chapter meetings during the year. Note that all chapter meetings are eligible. If a member attends 12 chapter meetings in a year, then she receives at least 12 education hours for the year. Please note that time spent traveling to and from area meetings and/or the annual education conference is not eligible to be counted as education. If your chapter permits, it could fall under the classification of administration, but it is not eligible for education. The final decision as to what counts as an education hour rests with the local chapter board. Chapter and community seminars are a fundamental premise of education. Education hours are counted by the chapter member who attends a chapter-approved workshop or seminar for the purpose of learning. When trying to decide if an event qualifies as JA education hours, consider the following guidelines from the Education Manual. Will this activity help you learn more about your chapter? Will you learn more about NAJA as a result of this activity? Is the primary purpose of this activity to help you learn something which will enable you to perform your duties as a JA volunteer more effectively? Will this non-JA sponsored event return information of value to chapter programs of service, education, and/or finance? If you can answer yes to any of these, then your efforts will positively impact the lives of chapter volunteers and those you serve, and these hours should be counted as education hours. Finance hours are earned by working to raise funds to cover the expense of chapter projects. You can earn hours in many ways: time spent in finance project committee meetings, time spent preparing for the finance project, such as securing donations, sponsors, auction items, selling tickets, etc., and time spent working a shift at the project. Note that NAJA does not have a minimum number of hours required for finance. This is a chapter level decision, and you should check your chapter's constitution for a local requirement. Service hours. This is the reason we exist, to serve our community. Service hours are earned by service given to others in the community through the chapter service projects. Service can include child welfare, community, cultural, and other activities. These are the service projects adopted by your chapter. The minimum number of service hours required by NAJA is 24 for each member. Again, your chapter may have a higher number, and you should check your chapter's constitution for that requirement. Service hours should be earned while working in the service of others when they are present, or by working in the preparation or execution of a project that directly affects those whom the chapter is serving. It is important to note that monetary donations to the chapter, including purchasing items for a project with personal funds, are not to be recorded as service hours to the chapter. These are donations to the chapter, not a service to the community. The same holds true for donations to the NAJA Graduate Scholarship Fund. Monetary donations are not reported as service hours nor as finance hours. Many times chapters will unconsciously shift the focus of their attention from service work to finance projects or administration. Sometimes there are extenuating circumstances which cause administrative hours to be high, such as working on the national level. But service should always receive the bulk of the chapter's time and attention. The chapter should never place a greater emphasis on finance and administration. Charitable service and education are the major concerns of Junior Auxiliary. Examples of service hours include preparing for a service project, making phone calls or sending emails to make arrangements with a community partner, or to communicate project details with chapter members, shopping with chapter funds for a project, delivering items, and so on. Time spent at a chapter service project, such as reading as a part of a literacy project or mentoring to a child or single parent. If your chapter does a big Christmas event, the time spent shopping with chapter funds, wrapping, and distributing gifts can be counted as service. Participating in your chapter's child welfare project counts as service. You can count your time spent preparing and delivering a meal to a family in need. Time spent collecting gently used clothes and delivering them to a family can count. There are countless other examples because our chapter's projects are so wide and varied to meet the needs of the communities that they're too numerous to list. However, the common denominator between them all is that the member is actively serving the community. As was stated on the previous slide, service hours are earned by actively serving the community. The heart of Junior Auxiliary is hands-on service projects and making a difference in the lives of others. Picking up a few packs of baby wipes or a few dozen cookies while buying groceries for your own family and then having someone else drop them off is not active service, and this practice is strongly discouraged. Shown here are a couple of examples of what is not considered to be service hours by NAJA. Members may not make a donation to the chapter and receive service hours in return under any circumstances. In this scenario, the members made a donation to a nonprofit organization and may benefit by itemizing the donation on her taxes. She may not receive service hours in return for the donation. The same situation applies if a member goes out and purchases items for a project with their own money. They've made a donation to the chapter but have not earned service hours. Chapters need to strive to make all purchases with chapter funds, and there should be a planned shopping outing for members to participate as a group. NAJA discourages this particular scenario for the same reason noted earlier. There's a good chance that the member is picking up the item or items for the project while she's out shopping for other things, and the time is not really carved out for Junior Auxiliary as service time. Furthermore, how is the chapter to know whether she asked her husband, child, or family friend to pick it up while they were out running their errands? The best practice is to have a dedicated shopping trip for members to participate. This also allows for bonding time among your members. Another reason for the prohibition of the donation or purchase practice is that it can backfire on a chapter and result in attrition of members. Members or their spouses may feel like the chapter is constantly asking more and more of them financially, and the members may leave. If your chapter finds itself in this situation, it's time to reevaluate your chapter's finance projects. A few reminders on how to remember where to record your hours. If you're learning something, it's education. If you're serving or teaching others, it's service. If you're making money, it's finance. If you're helping to run the chapter, it's administration. The Provisional Training Manual addresses some specific rules about counting hours that have not already been addressed on the previous slides. Half hours are not counted. Round off hours to the nearest whole number. Please note that sending one email or making a phone call that takes 10 or 15 minutes does not count as an hour. It is advised that members keep a log of time spent and add up the smaller tasks to get a more accurate picture of the man-hours needed for a project. Hours cannot be counted twice. Credit them to only one category, either administration, education, finance, or service. Service hours can only be earned by the active JA member. Service hours cannot be borrowed, shared, or bought from another member. Associate and life member hours are not to be counted as active service hours. There is a specific reporting category for associate life hours on the year-end reports. Chapters may track them with a project to know the actual number of hours worked for the project, but they are separated for NAJA year-end reporting purposes. Hours worked by husbands, other family members, or friends are appreciated but cannot be credited as JA volunteer hours. All hours accrued by a provisional are recorded as provisional hours and are listed as education. Chapter members serving on community boards will only count their hours if they serve as JA representatives to those boards. If you have any further questions, you can consult the following manuals to get the information used in this presentation: President's Manual, Provisional Training Manual, and the Education Manual. Both the Provisional Training and Education Manuals can be downloaded from the NAJA website. As always, your chapter support coordinator and NAJA headquarters are there to provide you with assistance for questions big and small. We hope that this video has been helpful to you and strengthened your understanding of how to properly report the time you dedicate to junior auxiliary and to your community. When NAJA compiles the data each year, we want to make sure that the numbers that we report are an accurate representation of the hard work that you and your chapters are doing.